Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. No smiley face from me today, I'm afraid, because I'm full of cold and hay fever and I look a right mess. However, today I am going to go through a fresh set of 7 JPEG recipes that you can use in your Fujifilm cameras today if you like shooting JPEG. We're going to go through these 7 settings that you can see here on the screen. I will explain all of the settings for each and every one of them. First of all, this film is kindly sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that I use for all of my websites, and I will talk about them a little bit later. Let's dig in. As I go through each of these images, I will display the settings that are relevant. So for example, if monochromatic color is not relevant to that particular image, then I won't display it and I won't talk about it. Also remember that the images that I'm using here, I'm editing from X-T5 cameras. Most of the settings will work for the previous generation of X-Trans sensors as well. If you're using really old cameras like the, X100F or X100S, for example, X Pro 2, then some of these settings might not work. The other thing to remember is that clarity will slow your camera right down. So all of these settings are essentially a starting point for you to use for yourself, and you may choose and adjust things accordingly. All right, the first one we're going to talk about is one that I've called cinematic color, and the cinematic color recipe is designed to emulate the moody and dramatic tones often seen in cinematic films, I guess. I'm using the classic NEG film simulation, and that's known for its subtle color palette, lower saturation and softer contrast. It's ideal, I think, for achieving a nostalgic or film-like look. It's excellent for street photography, portraits, and any scenario really where you want to convey a sense of timelessness and maybe emotional depth. The grain effect I've set to weak, small. That adds a light, fine grain to the image, mimicking the look of film grain. It enhances the vintage feel, I feel. It enhances the vintage feel, I think, and can add texture, I suppose, making the image feel more tactile and organic, I guess. The color chrome effect, blue, I have set to weak. And this slightly boosts the blue tones in the image, making skies and water appear a little bit more vivid without overpowering the overall color balance. It's useful for adding a subtle pop to blue elements. I think it enhances the mood without overshadowing the colors. Now the white balance shift I've set to red -3 and blue -2. This adjusts the white balance to add a slightly warm tint by reducing the blue and red tones. It creates a more balanced and neutral color temperature, I think, preventing the image from becoming too warm or too cool. Highlight tone I've set to +2. That increases the brightness of the highlights, adds a more dramatic look by accentuating the brighter areas, making them stand out and adding a punchy bit of contrast. Shadow tones are +1, slightly darkens the shadows, and that enhances the contrast also and the depth, providing a more dramatic and intense look suitable for cinematic style. The color I've set to -2, and that reduces the overall color saturation. And I think that contributes to the muted film-like quality, avoiding overly vibrant colors and keeping the tone consistent with cinematic aesthetic. Sharpness I've set to +1. That increases the detail and the clarity in the image and ensures the fine details are crisp, but not too much, and it can be particularly effective in high-res display or prints. Noise reduction I've set to -1, and that retains more of the natural grain and texture, I think, enhancing the film-like appearance. Clarity +1. That boosts the overall clarity and definition of the image, and that helps in making the image appear more three-dimensional and vivid. But remember, clarity will slow your camera down, okay? I think the cinematic color recipe is perfect for creating images with a timeless, evocative feel. The classic NEG film simulation combined with subtle adjustments in white balance, shadow and highlights crafts a look reminiscent of classic cinema. At least that's what I'm trying to achieve. By using cinematic color recipe, you can achieve a consistent and aesthetically pleasing look that adds depth, I think, and emotion to the images, making them stand out with distinctive cinematic flair. So there you go. Next up is the cinematic monochrome version of this recipe. A cinematic monochrome recipe is designed to evoke the dramatic, timeless feel of classic cinema, but in a black and white way. And I think it enhances contrast, deepens the shadows a bit, creates a visually striking image with that nostalgic film-like quality. So the settings for this simulation are using the Monochrome plus yellow filter, and I think that enhances the contrast, particularly in skies and skin tones, provides a bold yet natural monochrome look. The grain effect in this case is weak and large, and that adds a subtle but large grain effect, and it imparts that vintage film texture to your photos, I think, contributing to that nostalgic cinematic feel. Now the white balance in this case is, or the white balance shift I should say, is red +9, blue -1. And the shift towards red and away from blue warms the monochrome tones, giving your image a richer, more inviting atmosphere. Highlights +1, that increases the highlights, brightens the lighter areas of your photos. And shadows are +3, deepening the shadows, significantly enhancing contrast, creating a moody, intense look that's characteristic of cinematic photography, I think. Sharpness is +1. A slight increase in sharpness ensures that detail remains crisp and clear, and noise reduction is set to -1. And reducing that noise maintains the natural grain and texture of the image, avoiding the overly smooth look that can detract from a filmic appearance. Clarity +3, remember it will slow down your camera. Boosting clarity sharpens those mid-tone contrasts, and that does enhance the textures. The cinematic monochrome recipe, I think, is good for various photography genres, including street and portrait photography, and I think it's perfect for photographers looking to add a classic film-like aesthetic to their black and white photos. As mentioned, this video is kindly sponsored by Squarespace, and about 5 years ago I transferred all my websites to Squarespace and have never looked back. Those of you that listen to my FujiCast podcast will often hear me talk about the benefits of this system. My entire business, including the blog, e-commerce and marketing elements, is run on my Squarespace websites. With the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint, you can create a completely personalized website, which I think is amazing. You can choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. It really is a superb system for photographers to showcase their work and build their business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Kevin Mullins to save 10% off your first website or domain purchase. And before we move on with the next JPEG recipe, it would be remiss of me not to point out my Film Edition 3 editing toolkit for Lightroom, which is available on my website. There is a discount code below and the link also. This toolkit is an advanced set of Lightroom profiles and presets, including AI utilities that really do enable you to take your raw file formats to the next level. Okay, the next one that I've created is called Documentary Color. And the documentary color recipe is tailored, I suppose, kind of in an esoteric way for photojournalists, storytellers, documentary wedding photographers, that kind of thing. It enhances the natural subdued tones and textures in your images, making it perfect, I think, for capturing the essence of real life moments. So the settings for this one are classic chrome is the film simulation, and that's known for its muted tones and deep colors, providing a cinematic look. And it's ideal for documentary style photography, I think, where capturing the true essence of the scene is crucial. The grain effect here is set to weak small, And a subtle grain effect adds texture, as we know now, without overpowering the image. And the color chrome effect is set to weak, and that enhances the color depth without oversaturation. And this setting brings out the richness in the colors, making them more vibrant and impactful without losing their natural appearance. The white balance shift is red +2 and blue -1. This slight shift towards red and away from blues adds a warmth to the image, enhancing the skin tones especially. Highlights are -1, and as we know, lowering the highlights preserves details in the brighter areas, ensuring nothing is lost in overly bright conditions, assuming you've got your exposure right, of course. Shadows +2, increasing the shadows enhances contrast and depth, and I think that brings out the details in darker areas and adding a sense of drama and intensity to the photos. Sharpness is +2, and boosting the sharpness, again, as we know, ensures that all the fine details are captured crisply. And that's kind of vital for documentary photography, where every detail can be part of the narrative. The documentary color recipe is designed for those who aim to tell compelling stories, I guess, through their photographs, making it ideal for various genres, including street, portrait to a certain extent, landscape photography this should work for as well, and of course, candid storytelling. I think this recipe is perfect for photographers who want to create images that are not only visually appealing, but also rich in narrative and emotional depth. Details don't get lost too much with this JPEG recipe. And the next one up is documentary monochrome, which is pretty much the same as the color one, has the same reasons for existing, for storytellers, keeping details, all of that kind of stuff. But this is in a monochromatic format. And really the only difference here is instead of using the classic chrome film simulation, I'm using Acros plus yellow. So grain effect weak and small, white balance shift, red +2, blue -1, that subtle twist towards the red side. Highlights -1, shadows +2, sharpness +2. Nice little set of color and monochrome JPEG recipes, I think, for people that want to keep the details. You know, it's all about that context in these kind of images. Okay, the next one I am showing you is called Lighthouse. And this is probably my favorite one of the set that I'm showing you today. And the Lighthouse recipe is inspired by the cinematic aesthetic of film noir, particularly influenced by one of my favorite films ever called The Lighthouse, which was directed by Robert Eggers, or Eggers perhaps. This black and white recipe is designed to create high contrast, dramatic images with a gritty, timeless feel. And so the settings for this are Acros plus red for the film simulation, and that boosts the contrast and darkens the skies, adds depth and drama, particularly in outdoor and landscape scenes. Grain effect is strong and large. A pronounced grain effect adds a significant texture reminiscent of classic film noir, I think, and it enhances the overall gritty vintage feel. Monochromatic color is set to WC-1MG0. This slight shift towards a cooler tone adds a subtle, eerie atmosphere, I think, to the monochromatic images, reminiscent of the stark, desolate mood in the Lighthouse film. Highlights +4. Increasing the highlights significantly brightens the light areas, creating a strong contrast. And shadows +4 also deepening the shadows adds to the high contrast look as well, essential for capturing the dramatic, moody essence of this particular film. Sharpness is +1. A slight boost in sharpness ensures that those details that remain crisp, and noise reduction is set to -4. Minimizing that noise reduction keeps the natural grain and texture, avoiding any smoothing that could detract from the gritty, raw aesthetic. Acros has grain built in, so keeping that noise reduction down here works. Clarity is +3, and enhancing the clarity sharpens the mid-tone contrast, as we know, adding definition and a three-dimensional quality to your images. I think the Lighthouse recipe is ideal for photographers looking to create a dramatic, high-contrast black and white look. I love this kind of stuff. This recipe really is perfect for those inspired by that cinematic beauty of film noir and looking to infuse their black and white photography with a bold, dramatic aesthetic. Next up is one that I've called Modern Movies. Don't really know why I've called it that. It's kind of loosely designed to emulate the sleek, vibrant aesthetic of contemporary cinema, I guess. This recipe enhances colors and contrast to create a striking image that should, in theory, reflect the polished, high-definition look of modern movies. The settings for this are classic chrome, as we know, known for its muted tones, deep colors. Cinematic-based style film simulation. Grain effect is weak and small, subtle grain effect adding a touch of texture. White balance shift in this case is red +2 and blue -3. This shift towards red and away from the blues adds warmth to the image while maintaining a cooler overall tone. This is good actually for balancing skin tones and enhancing the natural colors. Highlights +2, as we know, increasing the highlights brightens those lighter areas, ensuring the key elements in your photos stand out vividly, I think. Shadows also +2, deepening the shadows enhances the contrast and depth. Colors are set to +2, boosting the color saturation makes the colors more vibrant and impactful, reflecting the vivid dynamic palette of modern cinema. And sharpness is +2. Enhancing sharpness ensures that details are crisp and clear, as we know already. Noise reduction in this case, -4. Minimizing that noise reduction preserves the natural texture and detail of the image, I think. This recipe is perfect for those who are inspired, I guess, by the polished, high-definition look of modern digital films and want to have that kind of similar aesthetic in their photos. And the final one for today is called Pure Grit. And the Pure Grit recipe is designed to emulate a gritty analog film look, perfect for creating raw and intensive black and white images. Recipe enhances textures and contrast to deliver a powerful visual punch, I guess, reminiscent of classic film photography. The settings for this are Acros plus yellow. Once again, that enhances the contrast and definition, particularly in skies and skin tones. Grain effect is strong, large. A pronounced grain effect adds a significant texture. Again, gives your images that gritty vintage feel. Highlights +4, as we know, increasing the highlights brightens that light area to an extreme degree in this case, creating stark contrasts and making key elements in your photos stand out dramatically. A good exposure is needed for this film simulation, by the way, this JPEG recipe. Shadows +4 deepens the shadows, significantly enhancing that contrast and depth. The noise reduction, again, is set to -4, minimizing the noise reduction, maintains that natural grain and texture that is already in the Acros film simulation. And clarity +3, remembering always with clarity, it will slow your camera down when it's processing. Boosting the clarity will sharpen the mid-tone contrasts and enhancing the texture and giving your photos a more defined three-dimensional feel. I think this recipe is perfect for those inspired by gritty, high-contrast aesthetic of classic analog film, like I am, and looking to infuse that black and white photography into their look. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed these 7 new JPEG recipes. Keep well, stay safe, and until next time, bye-bye.